So welcome everyone to Nonprofits Net Leadership Acceleration Program information session. My name is Dora Wong and I'm joined by my fellow board member and lead coach for the program, Margo Kelly. I'd like to just start with a brief introduction of Nonprofit Net for those of you who are not familiar with Nonprofit Net. We are based in Lexington, Massachusetts. That's been our historical home, but have moved to virtually since the pandemic. And our mission is to advance the greater Boston nonprofit community. And we do that through hosting monthly webinars on various topics of interest to nonprofits and executives and management. And also through this program, the Leadership Acceleration Program, which Margo Kelly will speak about shortly. Thank you for joining us, and we'll get started.
All right. I see Samantha. Welcome. So welcome all of you. We are going to be prompt and start as close to on time as possible. My name is Margo Kelly. As Dora said, I am the lead coach for the Leadership Acceleration Program. And I'm just going to walk you briefly through what you can expect if you decide to apply, which we hope you will. Then I'll open the discussion for questions. We have a couple of questions, good questions, and we'll be done in no more than an hour, probably less. So if you decide to apply for the next lap cohort, here's what you can expect. First of all, we're asking you to complete the LAP application, which is on the NPN website. It's not complicated. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, I put my email in the chat, and you are welcome to email me if you have any questions as you prepare an application. You'll be asked in the application to describe an important challenge or opportunity facing your organization. And it's important to say, we're not looking for something new. We're asking for a specific challenge or opportunity that you're facing right now. We've identified a few criteria that you should consider when describing your challenge, and they are listed as part of the application. So I just suggest you read, the application isn't complicated, the criteria are not complicated, but I suggest that you read them carefully and respond thoughtfully, because those will be the bases on which applicants will eventually be invited to join the program. Applications are due on August 10th. 2 letters of support have been requested, one from your board chair and another from a professional colleague, someone who has worked with you over time. I should say that while applications are due on August 10th, we can wait for the letters of support until September 10th. We know that it is sometimes difficult to get letters of support submitted in a timely fashion, but we must have them by September 10th because we'll be making decisions on final selections by the 12th of September. So after the applications are reviewed, I will be conducting brief phone interviews with the most promising candidates, and all candidates will be notified by September 12th, whether they are accepted into the program or not. So if you're accepted into the program, you will have an assigned executive coach. I should mention that Dora, who introduced us today, is one of the coaches. We may have another coach joining us shortly. And you'll become a member of a peer group, which is comprised of the other accepted applicants into the program. It's difficult for me to overstate the value that these 2 resources bring. Your coach has no agenda other than to see you succeed at the challenge that you have set for yourself. They will ask insightful questions. They will bring relevant tools and resources, and they'll consult with the rest of the coaching team so that we are sure that you have access to the best resources in our toolbox. The peer group will consist of up to 7 executive directors who will meet 5 times over the course of the program. And who will share progress, share questions, provide support, wisdom, experience. Many of the people in this program have had experiences that perhaps you haven't had and may have identified creative solutions. So I should just stop for a moment and introduce Danielle Piskadlo and Samantha Nelson, who are on this call, both of whom were participants in the first lap class. I had the pleasure of working with Danielle during that time, and Dora worked with Samantha. So Danielle or Samantha, any words that you would offer to people who might be considering applying for lap?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to go first. So I was completely bought into the LAP model. It's also the same model that we use at Women's Money Matters. So we run financial wellness programs for women and girls who are living on low incomes. And we also do that using like intentionally small groups, peer groups, that are there to create, a sense of belonging, but also to really facilitate like peer learning and exchange. And then each person is matched one-to-one with a coach. And so from the get-go, I was like, this is amazing. It's exactly what I was hoping for, because I do feel like I need this as an executive director, right? Like we've all kind of heard that it can be lonely at the top, but it does just feel like there are issues that you don't necessarily want to discuss with your team and may not want to like discuss with your board, but you really want the insights of other folks who are in that same type of leadership position and facing like similar challenges. And so I felt like that was the best part of it. And then to couple that with the like you have a specific goal that you're talking about, but like the regular coaching sessions, that is so invaluable. As Margo said, like there's no hidden agenda. Like this is just someone who's there to support you and really talk through kind of issues that you may be having. So so happy to answer any questions that folks may have, but I really, I didn't find this too like time consuming. I know that's a big issue for, all of us that are very busy and have a lot going on. But I do feel like the value add, I mean, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't feel the value add was really worth it. So happy to hear what your thoughts are, Samantha, and answer any questions.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel very similar to, I share a lot of the feelings that Danielle just expressed. I really enjoyed the experience. I felt it was both affirming and kind of like soul filling too, because, and it was really great to have the two pieces, have conversations with peers that sometimes felt like a bit like a group therapy session. We can kind of like all take a big sigh together and know that you are, dealing with similar things and that everyone in this room kind of really has your back and is really rooting for you. And then the one-on-one sessions too were just really great to connect and talk through all kinds of things about the challenge and well beyond. And I also found that there was, for me personally, it was just really great to be the accountability piece of it, to know like, oh, I'm meeting with the group and I want to be able to formulate my thoughts about where I am with things and really be able to share. And then meeting with my coach was always, and Dora's great, was always just something I look forward to. And I looked forward to being able to share updates and feel like I'm making progress toward this rather big and nebulous goal. So I'm with Boston by Foot. We're a nonprofit organization that offers explorations all over the city of Boston, and we do that through guided walking tours. And we work with over 200 volunteers who research, write, and present the tours. And so my challenge was actually around trying to build, and it's a very tight and strong community, and my challenge was actually trying to get outside of the community and really trying to connect to communities that Boston by Foot has not been able to reach. And so in some ways it was part of fulfilling our diversity and inclusion goals, and as well as fulfilling the goals for the organization to truly represent and explore all of Boston. And so it was also just really great to talk through some of, to talk to people that are not necessarily in my field and like living in my, or, not in the public history world that I tend to work in, and even other executive directors and other folks I tend to talk to them most. So it's actually really great to talk to people like Dora and the other coaches and the others in the cohort who had perspectives well outside of my public history bubble. So that part was really valuable as well. So I definitely encourage you to consider the program, and yeah, definitely felt it was well worth the time.
Great, thank you, Samantha. I'm going to just finish my little part here and then open it to questions, certainly for questions for Samantha and Danielle, which whose responses to be counted on to be honest and candid. I should also note that the conversations in the peer group are confidential. We know the nonprofit world is a small world, and I think it's important for participants to know that their conversations in the peer group and with their coaches are confidential. That we will have a dedicated Slack channel so that participants can also communicate with each other in addition to the in-person or virtual peer group meetings as well. So I guess the big question is, why should you consider this? You know, honestly, I don't know why you wouldn't. To have the attention and support of an executive coach who, as I said, has no agenda. Their job is to help you be as successful as you possibly can be at whatever the challenges that you've taken on. You've got a peer group of colleagues from across the sector. As Samantha said, some of them will be in parts of the nonprofit sector that just are not necessarily familiar to you, but in many cases, they may have experience or access to resources that you may not have necessarily been aware of or have access to. So that can be extremely valuable. And there are additional tools that we will offer that we think will be build your confidence as a leader and help support you in tackling whatever challenge you've taken on. So I can't imagine why you wouldn't apply to be part of LAP. And just a final word before I turn to your questions, why a performance challenge? The LAP program is modeled to some extent on a program called Achieving Excellence at Harvard's Kennedy School. It's a program where I was the lead coach for a number of years. A fundamental conviction of both Achieving Excellence and the LAP program is that meaningful change happens in the context of doing real work, doing actual work. Leadership programs and seminars are valuable. They provide support in a number of areas, but they're very often hard to remember when you get back home. You get back to the office and you're faced with the same situation, the same staff, the same board members. The LAP program will focus on the challenge that you bring to the program, and that will be the primary focus of our work with you over the 9 months. And we believe that the resources that will be available to you really will enhance your confidence and your leadership. So the goal of LAP is to use a performance challenge to enhance your leadership and to strengthen your organizations. Let me just tackle a couple of questions that were raised in the email. A couple of them are related to, you know, what do I say to my board? How do I convince my board that this is a worthwhile effort? I guess if it were me, I would say to my board, it's a 9-month program. It is going to provide strategic support from an executive coach, from nonprofit peers, to creatively tackle a challenge facing our organization. And all this is at no cost to our organization. So I would just suggest that those are what I would be saying to my board or in that situation. There's a question about, is there coaching available to prepare an application? I put my email in the chat, and anybody who has questions, additional questions, or is looking for some specific suggestions, I'm happy to talk to, so don't hesitate to contact me. A couple of the other questions asked were actually more appropriate if you decide to join the program. Could you elaborate with examples of the best ways to work with different personal styles? And can you suggest 3 quick win ways to build trust and respect for the new board chair? And again, those questions are good ones. They are very appropriate to be raised in the LAP program, but probably not so much on this particular call, which is intended to be introductory rather than problem solving. So let me open the floor to see if there are questions for Samantha, for Danielle, for me. And I should mention, I think Hafsa Syed is on this call, and there she is. Hafsa is one of the other really talented coaches in this program. So I want to make sure to introduce her and welcome her. Any questions people have that weren't answered in our comments?
Aaron's got a question. He's raised his hand. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. Thanks for putting this on. It's a really wonderful program. I have two quick questions. The first is on the application. So on the website, on the second page of the form, when you go in to fill it out, it almost looks like the criteria have been listed out as questions. And I'm not sure what's going on there, because then the next page you actually seem to answer the question. So I'm not sure if it's some kind of error in the website form. I'm a bit confused about what the second form page is for.
I'm going to turn over to Dora here. I mean, just Aaron, from my perspective, the criteria listed there are criteria that we suggest whatever challenge you are proposing, the extent to which it meets those criteria gives us a fair amount of confidence that we can be really helpful to you in addressing it. So I can't comment on the website. I looked at it and wasn't confused, but that could be me. Dora, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just going to it now just to make sure there's not something that I missed in terms of how it's functioning. Give me a couple minutes if there are other questions and I'll come back. I just want to make sure that what Aaron is referring to,
Okay.
I understand how his, if it's just working the way it's supposed to be working.
Okay, I guess the second quick question then is just, I wonder if anyone could share a surprising outcome of the program, one that maybe people that have been a part of it or coaches that were part of it maybe didn't expect the kind of like wonderful, interesting outcome from this work.
Well, I'll offer one thing, and then I'll ask Danielle or Samantha if there's anything that they would like to observe. I think one of the people who joined the program last time, he described his challenge very, very differently than the challenge he ended up pursuing. He described his challenge as being building his leadership so that he would be able to effectively conduct a strategic plan inside his organization. And he had sort of some very specific criteria for what he wanted that strategic plan to include. As we talked and discussed it in detail, the outcome he was really seeking was an inclusive, comprehensive 3-year strategic plan for his organization. And the concept of his leadership was that his leadership would be built in the course of developing that plan, so that the outcome of his challenge became the plan itself rather than developing his leadership. And it was, I think he would say, I'm fairly sure that he would concur if I said at the end of this, he absolutely felt that his leadership had developed and his confidence in his leadership had developed significantly, and he had a plan well underway. So Samantha or Danielle or Dora
Yeah, I'm happy to offer like a few. I think one of the things for me that was interesting, I mean, Samantha mentioned that like we all were kind of in, had different areas of focus for our nonprofits, but just really like how many areas of overlap there were and commonality, and I mean the issues that were so fundamental to many of us around like funding and strategic planning and board relations, like all of that just felt like there was just such a deep commonality. I think also the number of like really concrete resources that were shared, like just the fact that we were able to like share templates and like different kind of very like concrete things that could be referenced or used. Certainly like I still am in touch with Margo, so the fact that she's still willing to like respond to my emails, like the program continues, and it was just such a delight to be actually at an award ceremony recently and run into one of my fellow lab participants, and so we hadn't actually met in person. That I don't know if that's changing or not, but just like the way that community can really be built virtually. I mean, when we saw each other, it was just such an immediate like excitement and wonderful like supportiveness of each other at this event that we had to like give a little speech at. So yeah, so just in general, like the sense of community and how strong we were able to build that over the short period of time that we were in this program.
That's actually exactly what I was going to say. That you know, there's another member of our cohort that she and I ended up being in another group, and we're like, oh my gosh, yeah. And so like it was actually like a really good continuation of some of the conversations that we were having with LAP, that we were able to actually even bring our experience from LAP to this other group. And so that was really interesting and really helpful. And now she and I are very much in touch. Yeah, and we were talking a lot about governance concerns and board matters, which, you know, again, we all as nonprofits must deal with. And then the other thing is a funny surprise that I just maybe a fun anecdote I can share with you, Danielle. Just in the meeting I was in before this one, which is the reason I was a little bit late. I apologize. I was with with a group of our volunteers and my staff, and we were talking about various structures and of how to do virtual programming. And one of my staff members just said, you know, I'm just started volunteering for this organization that's doing such an excellent job with their training and their presentations, and it's Danielle's organization.
Oh,
Yeah. And so it was funny because as soon as she started describing it all, and I was like, wait a minute, which organization is it? And so and actually, and I shared with her, and I'll share with you that I was thinking about what a great volunteer opportunity would be to volunteer with Danielle's organization. So, you know, I guess just the sense of connection and ways that, you know, we are in very different fields, but obviously we have a lot to share and a lot to support and a lot of ways to, you know, to be there for each other.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks to both of you. Any other questions?
Julia has a question.
Thanks. Julia, you're muted. Okay.
Coming.
There
I'm
you
here.
There you
Um,
are.
I am the president of the Concord Scout House, which is a nonprofit organization. And as the president, I'm a volunteer. We don't have an executive director per se, so I wasn't sure if this would be an applicable program for someone who is a volunteer.
I think you and I should talk, Julia. I wouldn't automatically dismiss it if you don't have an executive director. If you are the chair of the board, in many respects, you're serving in a complex capacity with some suggestions. But I put my email address. Let's set up a time to talk outside of this call. I think that would be helpful. Okay.
Okay, great.
I'll put it in the chat again. I do can answer Aaron's, or Ellen has also raised her hand, so. Which, Ellen, do you want to go? And then Aaron, are you okay if we just wait a bit? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm continuing on that vein. I was just wondering what some of the other results were besides Danielle and Samantha's results. And also, maybe I have to have a private conversation with you, Margo, but I have a very small board. We just have 2 people.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
Yeah, and I know, you know, the chair, who is also the founder, I did something in the past that didn't sound like it was more nonprofit, and they had presentations every week. And I just didn't feel like I didn't have a mentor, which was a problem. So I just felt like it was, you know, sort of therapy rather than actual helping me. So I just wondered what, you know, how this was different from, say,
Therapy.
yeah, from that program, which was a leadership program for people. And it was a huge group of people. It was like 40 people too. And we would break up into groups, but a lot of times I found some of the discussions irrelevant, because it was a lot of the nonprofits were, you know, helping people with, you know, people who are discussing basic needs like food security and things like that. And I realized that not all these groups are involved in this. But Samantha, I don't know I missed what you did. I'm sorry, Danielle, but like food security and healthcare and things like that. And I wondered how many do you do work with arts groups as well? Have they applied and been members of the cohort?
So let me just comment on a couple of things, and if other people want to offer something, they're very welcome. First of all, I totally understand there's great value in leadership programs. I have been part of them. I have led some of them. I would have to say this is very different. This is number one, it's in no way generic. The focus of the program is to work with the up to 7 people who are executive directors, each of whom will come with a unique organization and a unique challenge. But I think it's worth revisiting what both Danielle and Samantha said, which is that it's amazing how many commonalities there are across organizations, even when they are different sizes, they have different constituencies, et cetera. They're all dealing with boards, they're all dealing with fundraising. So I would simply say the focus in your relationship with your coach will be the challenge you are facing, not sort of anything generic. It is not therapy, it is performance-based coaching, really focused on helping you achieve the outcomes you are seeking for the challenge that you were presented. So I do think in that sense, it's a 9-month program. It's and when the peer group meets, the peer group members in each occasion share the progress they've made, the obstacles they've faced, and seek the kind of support and creative ideas of their colleagues. And I think that has proven to work very well. There will only be 7 people, up to 7 people in this cohort. So it is not a large group. It's not 40 people. It's a small cohort. And each person will have a dedicated executive coach over the life of the 9-month life of the program. So I think in that sense, it is different. I don't think the number of board members you have is a necessarily relevant issue. I mean, it may be that one of your challenges is attracting more board members. I don't know, but that to me is not necessarily relevant. What is relevant is that you have an organizational challenge and that we provide the resources that you need to accomplish significant gains in a 9-month period.
Yep. Well said.
Hey, I'm going to go back to Erin's question.
Please.
Just looking at the application, yes, it does have the criteria in there, and in which case sometimes the question is you would just reply yes, that you agree to. So I think that's, I think I understand why you're asking that.
Okay, so
Laura,
just yes. Yeah.
So Erin, give me an example of one of the criteria that was confusing.
So it's just that the way that the form is working right now, you like fill out your information about yourself on the first page, right? Your name, your organization, etc.
Right.
The next page essentially lists out all the criteria, 1 per question, but there's no directions as to like, please answer how your project meets these. It just says like, question 3, significant process possible within 9 months. So I could just say yes to that if that's all you're asking for.
Yes.
Because then the third, okay, great. Because then the third page does have a separate question where it asks you to describe I think in text form, how your project meets the criteria. So it just is that kind of first one, just like a check through like, yes, yes, yes. And then in the next page, you actually describe and write out more of a narrative.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah. So we'll take a look at it. I mean, there's no question that could be more confusing than I recognize, but I think because I know it so well, I sort of understood exactly what you're asking. But that's great. So you got that, Erin? Does that make sense? Okay. Super.
That's great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else we can? Alan, go ahead.
So my other question, I guess I got mixed up in what I said before, is how big a board do you have to have? And what if you don't get the cooperation of your board?
Well, that would be a challenge. We ask for a letter from your board chair because we think it's really important if an executive director is going to spend time and energy in working on a program like this, that their board as a governing body of the organization should be aware. Can you provide me with a thought about why your board might not be supportive?
Well, like I said, I did this once before and I ended up stopping partway through. Also, our chair, who is not that involved anymore. Does the board have to be involved in this at all, or?
We asked for the board, for the board chair to write a letter of support, so we know that they know that you've made a commitment to do this. Yeah.
Okay, so, but they don't have to be involved in this program. Okay. Well, you know, other than the fact that my board chairs has been busy with other things or hasn't really been involved, you know, they might disagree with me about the challenges of the organization.
Well,
That's
Sounds like actually a challenge to bring to the group.
The alignment.
Yeah.
Alignment of, so I would just, I wanted to add too to what Margo had said at the beginning about, you know, I guess pitching this to your board. For me, I guess, you know, the board is always, I have on kind of at a loss to be like, well, what can we do to provide some professional development opportunities? I don't know, like this isn't, they're not in the nonprofit field, right? They're not living and breathing what I'm doing all the time. And so when I came to them and said, hey, I found this program that I think would be a great professional development opportunity for me and a great way for me to, you know, continue on and, you know, serving the organization, and it would help me do this, this, and this. It was my board chair was like, where would I sign? You know, I just want to make sure that this is, I think the LAP program is right to ask for the board to, you know, kind of agree that this is something that they feel is something their executive director can spend time on. But I think, you know, it's if they are interested in supporting you and your growth and development and supporting you as you support the organization, I think that is you know, something I would hope that they would agree to pretty readily.
Yeah, I mean, this is a free professional development opportunity where you get amazing access to peers and resources and coaching. I mean, you would pay a lot of money for this level of like executive coaching.
Definitely.
So I feel like
it's a
pretty
good deal for them.
amazing resource to get for free.
Yeah.
well, and I should add that, you know, your coach never lets you go. I mean, I really enjoy staying in touch with the folks who have been in the program, and I am in touch with the folks that I worked with closely. You know, once you've worked with somebody and see the challenges they're facing in the organization and the incredible commitment and dedication and talent that they bring to the job, it's hard to forget that. And it's something that I sort of really enjoy, staying in touch with the folks who I've worked with.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, Ellen, in having somebody who gets to know you, not gets to know 40 people, not gives a generic course on leadership. I mean, somebody who gets to know you and your organization and develop some real understanding of what you're facing, including difficult boards. I mean, difficult boards have been an issue in so many of the organizations I've worked with, I can't count. So I would just say, and I think Samantha's suggestion that you bring the question to the group is I guarantee you the group will have fascinating thoughts on how you might get in alignment, as Samantha said.
Yeah.
I mean, not to mention you broaden, you know, you get more people under your tent, I would imagine, like people who get to know your organization, not just me, but people, the organization, and then you can become you know, an evangelist for
It's
other
absolutely true.
organizations.
Absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't want to keep people longer than necessary, but I want to make sure if there are any other questions for me, for Dora, for Asaf, for Samantha or Danielle, that you have a chance to ask them now. Anything else?
So you are available for help, because this is a very challenging application, I have to admit. Will take a lot of thought, you know.
We'll give it some thought. I mean, but don't forget, we're not looking for something new. We're looking for something that you are going to have to tackle anyway, because if it's not something you're going to have to tackle anyway, I promise you, you won't work as hard on it as you will if it's something you know you need to tackle. So just keep that in mind. And I am available. My email is now twice in the chat, so don't hesitate.
More,
to
3 times. The other thing I want
I had a growth goal, and you know, we doubled the number of women and girls that went through our program this past fiscal year. So there were a lot of like ways that I think we discussed, like organizationally, like unblocking that growth. So, I mean, as Margo said, I mean, the goal, it should be something you're looking to do anyway. And then, you know, you get that extra boost and support along the way of, you know, this group that's cheering you on and coaches that are supporting you and getting to know more deeply what some of the issues are. So definitely didn't feel webinar-y, and I feel
Very
like some of the
tailored.
language that was used is still like very much a part of my kind of everyday thinking, right? I mean, Margo started off by talking about how like it's important for us to like stay like on the balcony. Sorry if this is a spoiler alert, but like I think about that a lot. And like we just hired a new role that like has allowed me to actually do that. And seeing that change happen is like, to me, the vision that this program was able to kind of like imagine for me, that maybe I could get out of the weeds and should get out of the weeds, and what would that look like? And so, yeah,
That's great. It's
an important thing to focus on. The accountability that Samantha mentioned too, right? That like you're gonna be meeting with a group and be reporting in on what your progress has been. And so it just kind of helps you, like the application should help you put pen to paper around like what are your goals, clarifying those. And that's a helpful thing, whether you're part of the program or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you all, especially thanks to Danielle and to Samantha. And again, don't hesitate to let me know if there's anything I can do to be helpful. August 10th is fast approaching, so we hope that we will see applications from most of you.
Yeah.
So
Great.
take
Thanks
care.
for coming, everyone.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Don't hesitate to reach out when you have questions.
Thanks for hosting this.
Good to see you, Dora.
Oh, it is very nice to see you. How's everything? Actually, I don't know if these other people are still paying attention now.
Yeah, going well. Everything's great. We should check. We should plan to catch up, and I can kind of
Okay.
update on where
That
things are.
sounds
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
All
touch base
right.
soon. All right. Take
Take care.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Great.